Anna, how are you enjoying my experience to Arles so far?
I don't really know why you asked me here. I'm taking Italian.
You're taking Italian?
Yes! Hello.
Hi everybody, it's Carrie, and today we're going to be talking about my trip to France. I stayed in Arles with a family through Interexchange, which is sort of like you exchange tutoring services in English for staying with a family and getting free food. So in that way it was pretty cool. I loved the house family that I was with, as I call them. So I went from Charlotte, North Carolina to Paris, to the Charles de Gaulle airport, and then I took 2 trains to get to Arles. And keep in mind, like at this point I hadn't really taken too much French. This was my first flight alone. This was my first international flight, period. This was my first train ride alone. It was a lot. Like, I still can't believe I did it. I went to a few different towns while I was in Arles, thanks to the generosity of my house family. I went to Marseille. I went to Beaucaire and Uzes. Uzes? Probably Uzes.
Why are you asking me?
And I also went to Port Sainte Louis. So this is my first day in Arles, and they treat me with an amazing parade. So the parade.
They treat you?
Yeah, they do it specifically for me.
Come on! Again. Good grief.
So basically, a lot of families in Arles have this historical garb that they keep in their homes.
What's our historical garb?
I don't know. What's the historical garb?
We're holding a baguette. We're on a Viking ship, and I don't know. We're eating a potato, and
Are you talking about our family specifically? So yeah, basically these costumes were from the 17th and 18th century, and downtown Arles was built in the 12th century. So there are still buildings up that are from the 12th century, and they're gorgeous. They have all kinds of like special events in Arles. It's a very culturally rich city. It's also the city where Van Gogh did most of his famous works. Ironically, there's no Van Gogh art pieces really in Arles, even though that's where he lived when he did a lot of important pieces. A lot of the pieces are, cycling all over the world, but they had a Van Gogh exhibit circling through town. That was pretty cool. I was like, oh my gosh! Okay, so this was Town Hall. This was about like a 20-minute walk from the place where I was staying, so I came down to downtown pretty much every afternoon. This was their ancient theater, so they have been in town for a very, very, very long time.
Intriguing.
And this was the beginning of a photography festival that I went to. It was something that they do every year. So here's like an ancient Roman bridge. Again, this is like a city that's in the present and very much in the past in terms of its architecture. So there used to be a gigantic bridge across this river. And across this river too is where Van Gogh painted Starry Night. So I got to stand in the spot where he stood when he was painting it, which was like, oh! There's so many beautiful flowers. Every time you go to a new country, you're like, oh my gosh, the foliage is different. So there were a lot of beautiful meadows and natural flowers hanging out. This was my walk to get to the center of Arles. This is downtown, and then here I'm in the Cryptoporticos of Arles. This was one of the relics of ancient Rome. It's like these tunnels underneath the town square. They have these gigantic pillars sitting down there, just like pieces of... Yeah, it was really creepy.
Can you imagine carving into something like that?
I know.
Especially when you're doing multiple pillars.
So this was the amphitheater. They had like a proper Roman amphitheater here. It was just huge, and they do a bull show there every once in a while that I went to. It was really fun. It used to be like double the height of this, to give you some context. It was like huge. And then these were the Terme de Emperor Constantine. So these were like baths, like public baths. It was really cool, like, because I remember learning about Roman stuff in school, and here I got to see what all of it looked like. The museums here had so much really old stuff.
Whoa.
And then this is the church in the town square of Arles, and
It's pretty.
it's gorgeous. The cool thing about older churches, I find, is that they have multiple altars just kind of hanging out on the sides. Like, the real touristy churches have a lot of notoriety. So you have the main altar, and then you have, like, along the sides all of these famous and important church artifacts, what the faith looked like over different periods of time. So it's almost like a museum as well. And the museums here are really cool. The Reptu Museum, I think is what it was called, had a bunch of beautiful pieces from the past and the present. And then this is the one thing that from Van Gogh that is still in Arles all the time, and it's a letter that he wrote. You know, Van Gogh comes up a lot in this presentation. This is where he painted the bridge painting. So I got to see that. I got to see lots of sites where he painted.
Do they sell stickers and keychains with his ear?
No, I think that's an American thing.
An American thing. I've never seen that before.
I was having just a whole summer of having good hair days. I'm really impressed with myself, to be honest.
Today you're having good hair day.
Thank you.
A good skin day.
Thank you.
Look at the eyeshadow.
Oh my gosh, you're so nice.
Let's
Alright,
paint
that's why I
them.
invited you here. I appreciate you.
I know.
Okay, so that was Arles. You kind of got an idea of what it's like. It's got beautiful farmers markets, lots of history, both Roman and religious and all of that. Here's a beach. I went to Saint-Marie-de-la-Mer. It was like 30 minutes away from Arles. And for those who don't know, like, the southern region of France is kind of called Provence. So I was in multiple towns in Provence. Marseille, which again is the second biggest city in France, and it's huge. It's a port town. They have artifacts even older than the ones that I saw in Arles, which was incredible. I went to a museum, I did some shopping, and I went to the most amazing church I've ever been to and probably will ever be to. On this day alone, I walked 17,500 steps because I was walking all around Marseille. And again, a lot of that was uphill. I walked up so many stories just to get to this church. I could have taken a bus, but I'm like, no, I'm going to be a cheap girl and do it myself, get my workout in. Erg.
Now keep going.
So here's the beginning of the trek. I took pictures along the way, and then I made it. I was panting so hard and my face was so red, but I was so excited to be there. This was the chapel underneath the main church. So they had this gorgeous little chapel underneath. And then, yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is the coolest church I've ever been in. Floor to ceiling. Every single inch was planned out and artistically executed. There were boats hanging from the ceiling, like little sailboats, because it's a town by the water. the most incredible piece of art I've pretty much ever seen. Just the structure of it, the stone that they use, the timelessness of the design. I just couldn't even believe it. And look at that view. That was the view of the water. You could see all of Marseille from there.
I'm still focused on your hair and how good it looks.
I don't know, how does my hair look so well? A little less so there. But yeah. Wow. I miss it so much. I miss this church specifically. Just real quick, I'm not going to talk about Beaucaire, but I went there briefly and saw a really cool Brazilian show. And this Beaucaire is like a castle town. They have castle towns in France, of course they do. We hiked in Uzes. We went to a little chapel called Notre-Dame de Laval. Notre-Dame is just Our Lady, is what it means. So there's a lot of churches named after Our Lady.
I was about to ask. I was like,
yeah. So if you hear me say Notre-Dame, it means a different church probably than the one you're thinking of. So we hiked in this just beautiful valley, and there's this tiny little church. And then we went to the water, and there's this like beautiful little brook. A lovely day for it too. I had a great time. You can see the jewelry. Yeah, it's a little bit like North Carolina there with the little creeks and rivers. And then
I was talking about the castles. Nothing. I'm being sarcastic. It's what I do.
I love you. So this is a cathedral. It used to be a papal town, so it just has this really like upscale vibe. Like there was a lot of money here because the church was so present here. So this is the main church there. It was really, the structure of it was really incredible. The lighting was a little bit eerie. I think they were trying to keep the sun out a little bit. It's kind of hard to see. But yeah, the whole town was just like, it felt like the most upscale neighborhood in your town. That's how it felt. Just green everywhere. We had some ice cream. When you think about how old everything is, it's just like, how did they do this? That was my experience in southern France for the month of July. I feel like in Europe in general, they care a lot more than in America about the lives of working people. So it was like, oh yeah, next month we get a month-long vacation because it's mandated by the law. Also, you have to bring your own bags to the grocery store because we are trying to take care of the environment. So just the day-to-day living there was, I miss it.
Yeah. And everyone comes home from work and school at lunch for like, what, an hour?
2 hours. There's
2 hours. And it's just like a break.
You'll try to go to the pharmacy at like 1 o'clock and you can't because they're on their lunch break. How cool is that though? I could get used to that.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to do a shout out to my French host. She was amazing. Love Celine so much. I had a great time because of her. She taught me a lot about how to be safe and what to do and how to have fun in a new country. So I'm very, very grateful to her. That guy is just a waiter. I don't know why he's in the photo. Oh yeah, he photobombed us. That was why. So Hannah, do you have any questions about anything, or are you just grateful to be here?
Well, first of all, let me say how grateful I am. Would you want to go back to Arles, or would you want to go somewhere else first? Like, would you want to explore northern France?
Yeah.
So you could like hop over to Belgium and stuff? Or?
I wouldn't mind seeing Lyon and also zip over to Switzerland. They're like really close. Thank you for joining me here today. Je m'appelle Carrie. C'est mon soeur Hannah.
You're leaving me
Je
hanging.
ne parle pas très bien
Hey, je m'appelle
français.
Carrie. You're leaving me hanging.